Welcome back to the North Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame YouTube channel. I'm Ed Holinsky. Glad you could join us here today. Got two great guests for you. Twin brothers of different mothers. No, I shouldn't say that, but brothers who played for North Tonawanda in the 1980s. We're talking about Mike and Rich Stauffer. Guys, good to have you. Been a long time trying to get this thing finalized, but we're here today, and let's chat about you guys and growing up in North Tonawanda.
Pleasure to be here. We appreciate everything you do for the program. So it's nice to be able to watch these things, and it's an honor for both of us to be on here at this time. So thank you so much.
Growing up in North Tonawanda, people who aren't familiar with you or are not aware of you, talk about growing up and how you got involved in athletics.
Yeah, so we were born and raised in North Tonawanda, lived in Martinsville area, so over by the old Wurlitzer School, now Tim Hortons, and I guess there's some apartments over there. So we played a lot of football in that school lot right across the street, and we started in North Tonawanda Little League, right? So yep. Both of us played through that program. Both of us went through Wrazin and played for Fran Burke and the Wrazin program, and then onto the high school.
We had a lot of background because we had a lot of family members that went through the program. Our grandfather, Louis Rickard, he was in the 30s. He ended up playing a couple of years. We had a lot of cousins throughout the years with Ted Rickard and Dick Stillwell and Gary Zook. They kind of pre-existed us in the program, so we knew a lot about North Tonawanda football growing up. Our father's from Texas, so obviously Texas is big down there. He was never an NT grad. He came up here from the service and met my mom at that time. So, yep. But we, some of our early recollections, I would say, is going to some of the North Tonawanda games early in our careers. Yeah. Because our father was into football. Obviously not NT football. Then our grandfather was very close and lived with us for a while, kind of indoctrinated everything into us with the North Tonawanda program. So, we grew up with it in our blood and something that we always wanted to do from there. So,
yeah. So my dad, he coached us as the Little League Woodsman and the Junior Jacks. So yeah, he coached us all the way through 75-pound teams up to 115. Yep. I think was probably the last ones we played in. So so he was our coach, and so we were born and raised NT football.
Getting into the program and working your way up, were you guys always linemen, or did you play other positions in Little League football coming up, or what? You're laughing. I must have. No. This has got to be a good story.
We're always the big hogs down in the middle. So no, we were always linemen. Defensively, we played a little bit of linebacker at times coming up through, but yeah, with our size and everything, we were always destined to be linemen. And we, like I've always said along the ways, you kind of you live to be a lineman, you love being a lineman, and those are the guys that are usually successful, the ones that kind of buy into the lineman mentality, and that's just something we always did growing up, and that's just what we are. We're linemen for life.
It didn't matter what weight we were in. We were always cutting weight, not eating for 2 days before. And I remember how Joe Urban and I, we're standing in our underwear. We haven't eaten all day, getting weighed in, and then we're running around eating chocolate bars before the game. So absolutely, yeah, we were linemen from the start.
Yep.
Who were your high school coaches at North Tonawanda?
So for me, I started with Gene Zinni. So he was that was his last year that he coached at NT, and then Drmacich was my junior and senior year.
Yeah, so we both started off at Wrazin under obviously Fran Burke. I had Fran Burke, and then I actually had Dave Anastasi in the freshman year. So my 8th and 9th grade year, I had those two, which obviously is a huge factor in our lives growing up. And then so my high school coach was George Drmacich when I came up as a sophomore. I just missed Gene Zinni leaving, and then George Drmacich taking over. So I had George, and then Coach Anastasi and Coach Gadotti came up as the line coaches at that time when I was in high school. So
I had Hopkins. Hopkins would have been my line coach when I started as a sophomore, and then Coach A. was
Yep.
was my line coach.
Yep. And
Talk
Coach
about Coach Zinni. In the NT program, he gets overlooked by Dave Anastasi and Jancy and Vetter and Chuck Ramsey. But how was Gene Zinni as a coach?
Oh man, he was incredible. Yeah, I mean that brings back a ton of memories. And he had a program. I mean with Coach Cheesley and oh gosh, DeLuca was there. I mean he had a lot of the guys that were from the Titans. I mean we had a full. That was the first time I really had position coaches, right? I mean, every position really had coaching at that time. So we had running back coaches and quarterback, with DeLuca running with those guys. So yeah, I mean, I remember, coming up, and that was really the most sophisticated scheme that I was around. Was those days.
I missed Coach Zinni by I think a year or two coming up, but later on, once I got into coaching, I got reunited with Coach Zinni through the clinics and some of the camps that we did. And I guess the best way I can describe Coach Zinni was just he was like a kind of like a grandfather figure to you.
Yeah.
He's someone that was just he knew your name. He would always stop what he was doing, and it was just he was a guy that you could just talk to and just bounce ideas off of. And he really did feel like a family member. And then with him coaching my brother, there was that connection there. So, he was a guy, like you said, he's been overlooked in the past just because of the time that he was there. But man, what an influence on Western New York football he had. Even afterwards going to Buff State, like went to the Buff State camps and things like that. And, he was just, he's always referred to me as Mikey, hey, Mikey, how you doing? He was always interested in what was going on. So and wanted to know how Richie was doing all the time. So
Richie,
he was a great figure for North Tonawanda football.
And
without a doubt.
And such a lineman focused guy. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously with his background and his expertise, I mean, he was always, he did a lot with the linemen and he was always in the trenches with us. And I remember, Mark Zinkowski and Timmy Kornacki, like, God, what a beast. And just, he was always in the trenches with us, working with the lineman guy. Like that was such a focus, obviously for me, but I mean, to have the head coach really pay that much attention was pretty awesome.
Another coach in North Tonawanda history that gets overlooked is George Drmacich. He was the head coach for a few years.
Yep. How
was it playing for Coach Drmacich back then?
So Coach Drmacich was I would say, I don't want to deflect with what he did. He was just a different coach. You know what I mean? He wasn't that feel good, put his arm around you type of guy. He wasn't that type of a guy. He was kind of mild mannered. His expression didn't change much. You didn't know when Coach was happy or mad or anything. It was always the same expression throughout the whole thing. And so playing for him, he was intimidating because of that. He wasn't that feel good type of coach. If he smiled, you knew you did something really, really good because he wasn't that type of guy. You know what I mean? So you knew his background, you knew his history. I got to know him a little bit more when I was substitute teaching for him at North Tonawanda. So I actually got more involved with him after I graduated than when I was a player for him. But again, so we talk about position coaches. When I was playing, it was always Coach A. You know what I mean? Coach Anastasi was the guy that I went to if anything was going on. Coach A was the guy I would talk to. Coach Drmacich was with the what they call skill position guys, which I think we're the skill position guys. But he was up with the quarterbacks and receivers and running backs, so it was a different level with us. But a ton of respect. I have all the respect in the world for any coach on what they do, but Coach Dermacich, was just, he wasn't that guy that was going to hug you or put his arm around you and kind of make you feel good about things. But I respect what he did for us.
Yeah, playing center, I did get to spend a lot of time up with the quarterbacks and the receivers, and so I think I wanted to be a quarterback, but it was more of the I wanted to know everything they were doing. I wanted to know all the different sets. He was the first coach that actually allowed us to do a little bit of, line calling, where we actually had some alternatives that we could do. There was a lot of times where, if we had somebody in the gap and the guard was supposed to pull, we'd actually switch that out. We'd block down and I would pull. And, at that time we had John Stringfellow, and so we were calling a lot of stuff on the line, which these guys do all the time now. I mean, it's so much. They just have more responsibility in that tough, but it was really the first time that he kind of allowed that. And again, it wasn't anything that was, I guess, spoken, but he let us kind of be a little bit flexible on the line, and so he just kind of nod at you and be okay with it. And Stringfellow was always trying to call different plays, and that would frustrate the heck out of him. But he'd audible, and we really didn't have an audible throw for him. But John would just be doing stuff kind of on the fly, so he would always come to the sideline, and he'd be just kind of give him that look. But yeah, as you said, he didn't really. Yeah. Wasn't a man of many words.
I mean, he gave me an opportunity to play as a sophomore. So, I mean, that was great that he would put trust in me and be able to play next to him as a senior. So, I have all the respect in the world for what he did. And, I'm always thankful for everything that he taught me along the way. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah,
in talking to several players, I got the impression that Coach Fran Burke was probably the best coach to have as a freshman coach.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Talk about your experiences with Coach Burke.
God, I mean, just it's probably tough for both of us. But
yeah. I mean, he was a huge influence on both our lives. You know what I mean? It's just I can't remember a time in middle school or junior high at the time, I guess, right, that I wasn't with Coach Burke. I mean, he was the first person to really be like. Just a connection with him, and he was the first person that made me want to go into the profession of being a phys ed teacher and a coach. Like, he had such an influence on both of us. And I was the water boy in my 7th grade year because, Rich was playing 9th grade, and he just took us both under his wings. And then, I hate to say father figure because we had a great father growing up, but I mean, for Franny Burke, he was just, I can't thank him enough for everything that he did for me in my life and all that he meant to us. You know what I mean? He was a special person, and people that did not, I mean, to have him in my 8th and 9th grade years is just unbelievable. To have, again, Fran Burke and Dave Anastasi as my freshman coach, is just unheard of. Here you have a varsity coach and Fran, who just, did everything. It was just,
I mean, such a technique guy, right?
Yep.
I mean, everything that we did in practice. I mean, he simulated it. He walked us through it. I played outside linebacker for him, and so just getting that outside, getting depth. Making sure I was turning everything back inside, and on the line, he was in there. He taught me how to long snap. I mean, that was he was such a perfectionist about it, and just all of the technique that he did. And I always say Mike was just the natural guy. Like, he knew exactly where the ball was going. He knew everything about the scheme. I was a technique guy. I had to really drill things in, and I learned that from Fran. And my dad was in the Army. Fran was the Army guy, the Green Beret, and it was like just that work ethic and wanting to be better on every single play. I think that's where I learned that from him.
I mean, that was off periods. He was out running. I mean, I don't know how many miles he ran on that track before. Everything happened, or he's in the pool in between periods, swimming laps, and, free periods, he'd have us come down and play basketball with him on free periods. It was just a connection at that young age to have a guy that you can look up to and just respect in that manner was just an amazing, amazing person to have at that young of an age. And, I think about Coach Burke all the time. I mean, I got a picture of him at school right on my file cabinet. I think about him every day that I go out there. When I'm coaching, I think about what would Fran do at this time, or, what would Berkey do at this time. And I think anybody you talk to across the board is going to say, I don't think anybody could talk bad about Coach Burke. I mean, he was just an amazing, amazing person.
Yeah. I mean, everything, the gym or the weight room. I mean, he was the first one that really got us there, and and he was there whenever we were there. I mean, it just seemed like he was always available, to talk, and very, very special person in our lives.
How important was the weightlifting program when you guys went to school in the 80s?
Well, you saw the stats, right? We were like 5'10", 165 pounds when we were playing, so it was really important. We did it. I just, we just weren't that big. I was really kind of laughing when I was looking at some of the stats of, and playing at 185 pounds, maybe 205 pounds.
Mhm.
I mean, we lifted a lot. We didn't have maybe the programs or the protein or whatever it was, or maybe it's all the steroids in the milk that we give our kids now, but we just weren't that. I mean, there were guys that were pretty thick, and guys that when they hit the weight, it's pretty hard. But we were there a lot. We certainly did. Yeah.
Coach Anastasi started that summer program down in the basement of Wrazin, and he would have it a community ed. It was open to anybody, but you knew as a football player you're going to be down there. So he started making a priority at that point in time, and then I think as the years went on. When Coach Jancy came in, they really changed that, that outlook of lifting and everything. But, you knew Coach Anastasi was, he could outbench all of us at the time. You know Absolutely. What I mean? So you're always trying to get up to where Coach was at the time. But, he made it important. We were down there a lot. The time that we spent down in that Wrazin weight room down there underneath the pool, I can still smell it and still see the water coming from the ceilings and stuff like that. So we were down there a lot. But again, after you're done playing, you see the importance a little bit more than when you were playing. Yeah. And then you always heard the legends of, Johnny Laper and what he could squat and that type of stuff as being a younger kid, they pushed that type of stuff. So it got better as we went on, or after we had left. I know that Chancey really built that program up, which is nice. But Coach Anastasi was definitely the building block guy that got that whole thing started.
Yeah, for sure. I went on. I ended up signing up for track, and I lost weight, and I was doing discus and shot put, and I was running with people. I was running with the sprinters, because I think we had probably more of an emphasis just on getting out of our stance, being faster, being quicker. I remember as a senior, we did a lot of stuff around, trying to do like 10-yard. We were doing like those 10-yard sprints against the wide receiver. We just tried to be fit because we weren't that big. We were more, I think we did more pulling. We just got out and got after people because we just weren't as big.
I was going to ask you, what other sports did you do at North Tonawanda?
So we both were
mentioned track.
Yeah, we're predominantly football. Again, with a father from Texas, there was spring football and there was football in his mind. So we didn't have a chance to do too much other than that. Rich did track a little bit. We played basketball, not through our school. We did basketball. We were very active in everything we did. So for school though wise, we were predominantly football. So that was just the mentality of our father, and that's just how it was. But on any given day, we were either playing baseball or football or basketball, or we always had some sport going on with the neighborhood kids. But through high school, we're predominantly just football. Yeah, so
we played baseball until we had to start hitting curveballs. So
until they started cutting people from
when they would cut
teams. We just
when you had to make
we stuck with football. Yeah, we weren't getting cut from football, so we stuck with that. Yeah.
As high school linemen, how would you describe your demeanor or style of play?
He had the brains. There's no doubt about it. He was the technician, like he said. When I came up as a sophomore, he already played 3 years. This is his third year. So I know he told me every play when we went to the line of scrimmage what I was supposed to do, because at the time I couldn't believe I was playing at that point in time anyways. And coming from freshman ball all the way up, now you're on the varsity team. So, he was a technician on what he did. I don't think either of us were really we weren't that mean. We're not mean-spirited guys.
I think it was fun because I do remember, like, I always felt like we got after people, but my personality was I wanted to crush somebody. But when I knocked him down, I'd bend over and pick him up and say, hey, nice job, or pat him on the butt and send him on his way. So I think I just had so much fun with it. I always said that, because you meet me, you wouldn't think that, I had that mean streak. I always tried to say that, you have that switch when you get on the field that changes, and you want to, you really want to dominate the guy across from you. But I do think I always felt bad if I was beating on somebody that I tried to make them feel better about themselves at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, again, as I've gone through my career being a line coach, it's like, I want my guys to be mean spirited and everything. But at the end of the play, I tell my guys, block to the whistle and then help the guy up across you and do it again the next play, because I believe that is more demeaning to a person than talking trash or standing over top of them or anything. I mean, if you knock a guy in the dirt or you pancake somebody and then you extend a hand to him, like that's a feeling that puts it, that puts a feeling in them like, oh my gosh, this guy's gonna do this all day to me, and he enjoys it. You know what I mean? So, and again, like learning from Coach Anastasi, like he wasn't a mean spirited guy either. Like he got after things, and then at the end of the day, I think he's a big teddy bear. So I think that would be I think both of us are kind of like that. So yeah, I definitely think that's kind of how we played the game. A little mutual respect between the guys that we're going against, but we're gonna fight you for those 6 seconds during the play, but we're gonna help you up at the end of the day. So yep,
I agree.
You face a lot of different opponents. Some of them with more talent than you, some of them with better technique than you, and some of them that probably frustrated the heck out of you. How do you get into the mindset once if you're not having probably your best game, and how do you make those adjustments, or how did you make those adjustments?
You lean on the guys next to you a little bit. If you got a guy that's really kind of tearing into you a little bit, you ask for help every once in a while. I mean, in my sophomore year, I know I went up against Joe Zito, who was from Lancaster, who was, the Zito boys at Lancaster were legends over there. And, he was probably physically better than I was, and mentally, and probably a little bit more of a meaner person than I was. So, and I remember that day that Coach Drmacich said to me, he's like, listen, you're a sophomore, he's a sophomore, you got to kind of step up and do that. And he got me plenty of times that first game that I played him. So I think just, knowing who you have on the right and left side of you, and knowing when someone's better than you, and just saying, hey, I need a little bit of help on this play, or going to coach and saying, we got to scheme a little bit differently and things like that. And I think that's the one way to get out of your mentality, and knowing that there are guys that are going to be better than you. There's just, I mean, when I was a sophomore, I think I was 5'8", 200 pounds, if that, so you're going against guys, some of those Frontier guys and some of those Lancaster guys, just physically you couldn't compete with them. But I think ultimately you didn't want to let your teammates down. You didn't want to let your coach down. If I came to the sideline and told Coach Anastasi that, I can't handle the guy in front of you, he would have been like, well, figure it out. You got to figure it out sometime on your own, and you just got to kind of dig deep and like I said, rely on the guy next to you. And I've always had good linemen next to me, so that was something that you could always lean on.
Yeah, I think we had a lot of camaraderie and a lot of we were as a sophomore when I started playing, with Tim Kornacki next to me and Tommy Fetto, like those guys were as smart as they were tough, and so coming up there, I did lean on them a lot, but I think it was, I knew a lot of good technique. I mean, I think that from day one, I mean, that's what I always worked on. I think about, the number of times that I felt like I was beat versus the times that, I came out, you lose a battle. I remember it was funny because Brian Carey responded to one of the things I put on the TNT thing these last couple of nights. And I think the first play of the game in the TNT game, my senior year, Brian lit me up. All I saw was lights. I mean, it was just incredible how hard he hit me. And, it's like you get back up and for me, I laughed. I was like, holy man, this is going to be a battle. I was ready for it. And so then you go back and you get him on the next play. You just can't let it get into your head. You gotta always know that you're going to get your shot. You got to know that you can lean on your teammates and we were going to set something up, and with John behind us, he'd call something, or we'd use our scheme and down block where we could, double team, and we did a lot of stuff that, again, these guys now, they're just so much. They have so many more techniques that they're using, but we were doing combos and shedding off and getting to the linebackers, and it was just fun to compete. It was a battle, but I think we always just kept it as we loved the game, and and you knew you were going to have a second chance.
You were fortunate to play at the old George Vedder Stadium, that grass field, and Friday night lights. Talk about your experiences there and what you remember about playing in the old ball yard.
My gosh. I mean,
Well, it's right down the street, so it's about a corner away from me. So I get to see Vedder Field every single day I leave my house. So I don't know if that was just, divine intervention here or what, but that's my backyard right now. So, yeah, that was God's country to us. The crown of the field when you could, be on the sideline and hardly see the people across from you on the other bench over there because the crown was so big. Oh my gosh, I mean, I could go on forever. Click clack of the cleats. You went to the basement to go to the locker room and you came through that crowd and you came through that gate and those cleats were click clacking on that cement coming across, and you're going through a line of people and little kids, older kids, everything to get to your sideline. Like coming across that blacktop was something that was awesome. The ride over to Vedder was great. We get on the bus over at the high school and you would get on the bus and helmets on, strap them up, and you didn't talk the whole way over until you got off the bus. And then you got off the bus, and like I said, you walk across that pavement, and there was. I mean, I get chills thinking about it right now.
Yeah.
And the stands on the outside, the cement blocks, the stands there, and you knew that you were playing in the same field that our ancestors before us did. Our relation did before us. It was hollow ground out there, and
and it was always a little damp. It was always a little, you could smell the grass, and just everybody, just the noise, and I guess by the time we got there was always a crowd, and
the band playing. The band was awesome.
The band was awesome.
Took up the whole section of the bleachers, and
it
was just and then they have they put that picket fence around the outside of that, and everybody would just line that fence around the outside. You knew that. You were 2-3 deep in the end zone there, and then the other end had nobody in it, which was kind of a cool backdrop. You knew the stands. They ended at a certain spot, and that was all just kind of open field over there, and just the score. I mean, everything. The scoreboard, the George J. Vedder, up on top of the building. It was so iconic, and it was never slippery. It was never muddy. It couldn't be with the crown that we had, but it was just. It was funny because I was just talking to someone about, the picture that we posted about Todd and Kavanaugh, how he looked like he was 35 years old when he played. And I was like, yeah, that was our tailback. But when he would take sweep and he would get that downgrade, like he got trucking when he hit that downslide, and he got some momentum going. It was just, that and Clint Small Stadium are two of my favorite stadiums to ever play ball in, so.
Well, and I remember. Anybody that played for Fran Burke, I always playing center. I was always licking my fingers to hold onto the ball, so it was a little damp and Vedder all the time. It seemed, and always had a good grip on the ball, and I loved it there for sure. I mean, so Clint Small, I only played one TNT there, and that was just packed. I mean, that with everybody right there on the field, that's a pretty special.
And the train coming over top, it was just awesome. It was just, I mean, we were really fortunate to play in I would say great. I mean, now the stadiums now are, the kids are so spoiled in what we play in now, but when you go back to those old style stadiums, like we were lucky to play in that type of a backdrop, For sure. So I mean, I still, when I drive by Vedder every day, it's just amazing to still see that, and it's really it was quite the experience.
You guys didn't play at a lot of good stadiums. You talked about Clint Small Stadium and Vedder Stadium, but not all of your stadiums that you played at were in pristine condition.
No,
and they were always Saturdays, so it was, morning games, and I think the only place I'm trying to think, maybe, I don't think I played any other night games. So I mean, for me, and now everybody's playing night games. For me, that was super special to be in.
Friday
with the lights, Friday night lights was pretty special.
Yeah, when I started coaching at Grand Island, and they're like, okay, all of our games are on Saturday afternoon. I'm like, what? Like, what is going on here? Like, if we had a Friday night game, that was something special. I'm like, yeah, this is what I grew up playing. Like, this is fun. And, our kids got excited for Friday night games. And for us to be able to grow up and play half your games at home on Friday nights was amazing. So
with the crowds and the
with the
NT
crowd,
crowds,
yeah.
the NT crowds were always
people
fantastic.
just come out. Yeah, people came out for Friday night lights, and that was
and they would
something
travel.
special.
I mean, the teams that would travel would bring more people than
Yep.
too. So it was always good environment to be around.
Yep.
What was your TNT experiences like?
Well, I'll go first because I won all three. So, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, so my first one was at home. And it was just special, I mean, just having all that history and the pep rally and the build up to it was, something I had never experienced. And coming from Resl to, I guess I do remember going to TNT games from, for so many years. I mean, that was something that we always did. And traveling to the stadium a couple of times, like the history and the aura about TNT was always just to be able to walk out there and be playing that, to be in that game, pretty surreal, and just so many people and so much, so much riding on the game, right? It was just, you're really trying to live up to all those expectations for the community. And, I remember we had, just, all three games were tight. It wasn't anything it was never a blowout. So it was always a battle. And, just, down to the wire, a couple of goal line stances and, just some really special games to be involved with. So.
Yeah, Rich's senior year. I mean, that was, with Kevin Rowe fumbling at the 2-yard line and Dave Short jumping on it. And then, like he said, the goal line stance right before halftime, which kind of flipped everything. And, to win that game was pretty special. And then I was hurt my junior year.
Yep.
So I was on the sideline for that one. We won that one. So I get maybe half credit for that one. I don't know if I get anything, but
you get 2 out of it.
Yeah, right. And then senior year, they took it to us. We were not ready for that game. We were not mentally prepared. We thought we were NT and we were going to win. And they played the game of their lives. And it hurts me to say, but I take my hat off to them because they were just better. They were more prepared than we were. And then they tore down our goalposts. And I have a couple of friends from that Tonawanda team that remind me of it every year that I get a little text message and a little video of them tearing down our goalposts. And, they cut that goalpost up and gave them out to their people. So, he has his, they got their little piece of momentum for cutting down our goalposts. And so, yeah, it hurts. It definitely hurts. And I try to tell my oldest son, Rhett, that ended up playing football. And I'm like, it's a big deal. Like you need to win your senior year. Like this is something they'll live with you forever. And he was able to do that, which was nice. But, carrying that tradition on and knowing that I lost my senior year, I'm like, you can't lose your senior year. You got to win this one. So.
After high school, did you guys pursue and play any college ball, or was that it, end of the road for you?
So I played in the Kiwanis All-Star game and I was hurt there. I went and I had been recruited by University of Rochester, but I was actually going to play for Gene Zinni again at the University of Buffalo. And then that summer, I was going into engineering school and just with, not feeling great going into it. And I decided it was time to hang it up. So yeah, no, I didn't play after that. Coached a little bit with NT Little League, but that was it for me. Yeah,
with me, unfortunately I didn't have the grades going out of high school. So my option was NCCC at first, which obviously there's no football there. When I transferred to Brockport afterwards, I wanted to play football again after a 2-year hiatus. I played spring ball for them. And then at that point in time, I decided that coaching was something I wanted to get into. So instead of trying to play football, I decided to enter into the career of coaching. So I got into Churchville Chili for my first job over there. And I started coaching at Churchville Chili with the modified and having some input into the varsity over there. So I kind of decided at that point in time that after 2 years of not playing, that this is something that I was passionate about. And the best route for me was to then get into coaching right away. And I think, looking back, would I have loved to play at that level? Absolutely. I think the experience would have been great. but also getting into coaching right away at that age, was beneficial to me. So I decided just to kind of go that route. So
For both of you, was it hard to take off the helmets and the pads and put the cleats away?
Absolutely. I mean, well, so how many turkey bowls did we play?
Yeah,
we continued to play the game. It was, and then also to be involved in Mike's coaching career as, somebody that stands on the sidelines, and to be around the kids and to participate in that manner. I mean, I moved to Colorado and was working out there and got involved in some modified football and working with the kids again. To be around the sport and to be involved in it is how you do it. You try to give back and just feed off of that energy and still be part of it. To play the game. Yeah. I mean, I think we believe that we could either strap it on tomorrow if we had to, but we know we can't.
Yeah.
I saw that commercial today for Emmett Smith and Dan Marino.
That'd be us.
It's hard. It's hard to walk away from it. You want to play it, you want to participate at the right level, but at some point you have to.
Yeah, I think the same thing. Once you give it up, and I think once it's always difficult to go away from something you've done all your life. I think that's all you remember doing. And I think, again, I've been fortunate to get into the coaching career, so you never really leave it. It's like, you can I still have that locker room feel. I still have that game day jitter. I still have the first hit jitter. So, when you can coach the sport that you played and really give everything you have, it's a little bit easier to walk away from putting the pads on. And he may think he can play again. I know I coach it every day, and there's no way that I could put in the energy right now that these kids put in. So, I mean, I still smell the locker room. I still, do everything on a daily basis. So I don't have to miss it. I can do it every day of my life. So that's something that I'm very fortunate to be able to do. So, yeah.
Let me ask your opinion on this. It's been said that today's players are bigger, faster, and stronger. Do they have the same heart that you guys had and playing? And if everything was equal, could you make anybody's football team today?
So the game has definitely changed. I mean, there's definitely, yes, like everybody's doing something to get bigger, stronger, faster. Toughness wise, you always think that your group was always tougher, and I'm not saying I could play with the guy. When I saw that film of the 1920-18 that was on the TNT thing, and I showed Dean Santorio, the coach at Grand Island, and I said, "You got to watch this." And they're just banging each other. He's like, "Man, those guys were men back then. Like they were just, 3 yards in a cloud of mud and dust." And you think that your group was always tougher, but then you have kids every year that are just. You get a group that comes through and you're like, man, they're tough kids. Everybody says that this generation is soft. And I think to a point, this generation is soft, but there's still a group of football players that aren't soft out there. They still like the grind of every day and really hitting. I think the game has changed a little bit that as a coach, you got to coach differently. You got to coach not as hard, not as critical. You can't be as critical as a coach anymore because of everything else that's going on around you. But every game that we come out, I feel fortunate to be around kids that will put everything they have on the line to do what they do. We may be undermatched, we may be undersized, but they still give everything they have. So, yeah, I mean, I think you take a look at any team and say that, yeah, this team's a little soft or this team. But in the big scheme of things, kids that play football, you got to be tough on those kids that put through that grind. We tell our kids every day that it's a grind to play football. It's not, and not to take away from other sports or anything like that, but to put those pads on every single day and to hit every single play, it takes a special person. It takes a little bit of courage to do that on every single down. So, I don't think that the game has changed. The precautions have changed, But I still think our kids are pretty tough kids.
I think it's very situational too. I mean, the guys, in the 20s and that, that you're referencing, like they led a different life, right? I mean, and they had the coaches that they had at the time. And, I think if we were dropped into that time frame, we would have been experiencing a lot of that same, hardship. And, now I think, and we had the best coaches. I feel we had great coaches at the time, right? So we learned techniques. We went to camps, now we would have had those weight programs. We would have had a lot of that, the knowledge that they have now. So we would have evolved as well, so I think we would have been tight ends, so, I mean, I think it just changes, what we would have been involved in. And, but I think kids that are participating in football now, and, I think they're learning different and they're experiencing things differently. And, but they are, I think there's, like Mike said, I think you've got those tough kids in every generation, and those are the ones that are excelling at it.
We talk as a coaching staff, Dean Santori and Steve Stack and I, and it still comes down to, can you block, can you tackle, and can you do the little things right? And if you can do that, you can be successful. And if you're not going to do those things, it doesn't matter what type of offense you run, doesn't matter what type of defense you run. You got to be able to block, tackle, and execute on a play-by-play basis. So, the game has changed a lot, but it still comes down to those things.
When you guys played, were you good losers or were you better winners?
Oh, way better winners.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think we did keep it in perspective, and our parents were good about that. And we had our grandfather was one of those guys that would it certainly affected us, and we took it to heart, and would relive those plays that you knew that you didn't win that battle. But I think they try to keep it in perspective for us. And I'm absolutely I'm the optimistic guy that I knew that I was going to be back to battle again, and you take your lump and move on. So I think that.
Yeah, I hate losing. There's no doubt about it. There's nothing good about losing, but there are things that you can take away from a loss, obviously, and there's things that you can take from a win. And I think if you just know that you've done everything that you can in that moment, that you tried your best, then sometimes teams are going to be better than you, and sometimes they're going to make less mistakes than you are. And if you can't move on from that, then you're not going to grow as an individual. So that's still what I try to portray to my kids right now, is that, there's going to be teams that are just going to be better sometimes, and you fight and claw. And if you come out on the short end of the stick, again, you're going to wake up the next morning and be okay, so take it serious, but know that, there are always going to be ups and downs in your career. So, yeah, but I still hate losing though. It's not,
absolutely.
It's not fun.
From the various coaches that you were influenced by, what type of life lessons did you take from them, and what do you apply from what they taught you?
I mean, I remember that, and again, I think our father was always in our ear, right? He was always, talking to us about, the way to carry ourselves, and the way to, pursue life. And, it was, when I went up as a sophomore, I got the opportunity to play with the varsity team. And, it was, I still can remember this, to this day. I mean, the first drill that we ran with hitting, there was Tim Kornacki, and I ran right to the front. Like I was in the front of the line and said, this is the guy I'm going to go after, because if I can prove myself against him, I can prove it against anybody. And I don't even think I came out of my stance before he hit me. He was so fast off the ball, and he just rang my bell. And, he was one of those guys that, he also a really great guy, and, picked me up and, Staff, nice job. And I knew it wasn't a nice job, but I was right back that next play, and I tried it again, and I got better and I got better. And I think it's all of them. I really can't say that. I will say to my dad, he was the one that was in my ear all the time, working with me in the backyard about my technique and, my first step and getting off the ball. And, so, all of my coaches taught me technique, but I think he was probably the guy that was in my ear the most, teaching me those life lessons about, never giving up, always being better. And then I wasn't the best guy on the field at the time. I was going to try my hardest, and I was going to, make a difference there. So I guess that's probably the life lesson that I took away.
Yeah, I think with all the coaches I had, starting with Coach Burke and Coach Anastasi, and then moving up through, I think, they treat you as human beings. You know what I mean? You weren't just a ball player to them. You were someone that meant something to them. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that you had self-worth because of them, that it wasn't just, you weren't just a number, you weren't just a 58 on the field. They've always wanted to know what you're doing. You know what I mean? They were always wanting to know after your career what was going on with your family and things like that. So it's the relationships. And even Coach Chiasera, I mean, we didn't mention him, but Coach Chiasera was around for a long time. And, I talked to all of them through my career, and all the times I've talked to them, it was always, a very humanistic thing that you weren't just a player for them, but you felt like a family member to them, So, the Anastasi, when we watched the Anastasi boys, I felt like I was, watching family members talk on the film, because you felt like Dave was your father at one point in time. He's just that, he had that type of an influence on you. So going on in my career, I've said to myself a lot in the back of my mind, what would Berkey think of what I'm doing right now? Would Coach Anastasi still be proud of me right now? Would Chick still be proud of me and what I'm doing? So, through the 25, 30 years I've been coaching, those guys are still influencing me. Even after this long coaching, I still want to make, them proud. And when I see them, I look forward to them asking me about how football's going, how my career's going. So that's how much of an influence they had on my life and everything. So, and I think I try to portray it to my kids, is that, they're more than just football players to us. It's a lifelong family. So I think that's what I took. I'm very lucky to have those guys as mentors.
Yeah. And I think for me, I think there were so many instances where it's, as long as you're paying attention and listening and trying a technique. I mean, I remember Penn State football camp. Like I couldn't tell you the coaches' names, but I feel like every drill I took something away from. Yeah. Right. Every interaction, you always try to take something away from that. And, I learned from Tim Kornacki, right? I mean, he was the guy that was a peer, but a mentor for me. So, and Chiasera, I mean, we'd have Italian dinner night, and just those life lessons, Coach Williams, who wasn't necessarily my coach, but a teacher, talking shop, in his class with Stringfellow and Kavanaugh, and we get him off on a tangent about football and just learning something about either technique or scheme or something, and so really trying to take those tidbits away, in every interaction that you get the opportunity. So yeah, I mean, just that list is so long.
We went to Penn State football camp and we came back, and this was the first time we ever learned that we could use our hands blocking. So my dad went down and he took the video camera with him. Everywhere he went, he had a video camera with him, so he was always around doing stuff with us. And so we went down to Penn State football camp, and, we came back, and here we are telling our coaches, our high school coaches, listen, coach, this is the new technique that they're teaching. This is what they're doing. And they were like, teach us, let me know what's going on. Like Coach Anastasi, like, really, like, no flipper, no shoulder pad blocking anymore. Like, they want hands on. And like from, so 87 on, we changed the way we started blocking. And that's hard for a coach to, after coaching that many years, to be like, oh, I'm going to listen to a 16-year-old kid on technique. But they were open to it. And then that changed the way we started blocking that year. So it was, for a person to do that is, that's pretty incredible, I think.
We talked about a lot of different things in this conversation. What would you like to talk about that I didn't bring up?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think, it, for me, it's been tough because, being with Grand Island for the last 25 years, and coaching with Coach Masters for a couple of years there. And now, being with Dean Santoro and Steve Stack for 30 years. We have a great tradition over there, but, I still, having my son play for North Tonawanda, I got another little one coming up. He's 4. And I hope someday he gets to experience playing for NT football, So for me, it's been tough trying to be the team across the river over there and, still root for it was, especially when we started playing each other, right? I mean, I had to coach against my own son. He was a quarterback his senior year and he came to our place. Now, here he was, my water boy for 10 years, and now he's the opposite quarterback over there. So, for me, it's been very difficult to root for the Jacks because they've been our rival, not a rival, but they've been one of our opponents for the last 10, 12 years now. So I'm always looking over to see what they're doing, and I'm still trying to cheer for them because it is our alma mater. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, don't jump us in standings because we might need this one, And we beat Rhett, my son, Rhett. We beat him our junior year. And at the time, I think they had a better record than us. And I remember crying on the sidelines. I was happy that our guys did what they did. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, man, did we just ruin my son's chances to make a playoff spot? So for me, it's been a tug of war of such. But I mean, you look around my house, I got NT stuff and I got Grand Island stuff, and my heart will always be with NT, and TNT has always been such a big deal. And I've taken my kids to TNT games. I've tried to do as much as I can to instill that NT pride in them. And still, be the Grand Island football coach also has been tough. But, I guess just the life lessons of football and the friendships that you've had and, seeing the memories on what you guys did was unbelievable to place that platform for people just to put their feelings and their memories and everything out there was just an amazing thing. Here I am trying to get ready for a Grand Island football game, and I'm delving into my past with all the TNT stuff. It's like, wait, who am I coaching this week? I gotta get my head right here. So, the lifelong friendships, just following what you've done over the past years with what you've done with the Wall of Fame and the stuff over there has just been incredible to see. And the tradition that NT has, 114 years is just an incredible feat. And I'm thankful that I've had both. I'm thankful that I've had the traditions of North Tonawanda, and I'm thankful that I've had the traditions of Grand Island football, 2 great programs over the years. And with Gene Masters being a Tonawanda guy, we would sit there and talk about TNT stuff a lot when he was around. So even that connection when you go somewhere else, but still get back to TNT stuff was really incredible to me. So yeah, it's a wonderful sport to be involved with and to be in North Tonawanda and just see everything that's been going on. It's been wonderful. So
yeah. So I was gone for several years. I lived in Colorado, Connecticut, Taiwan for a while. So just moving back to NT, and now my son's in kindergarten at Spruce. So him having his lumberjack shirt, doing the TNT spirit thing, is pretty cool. And, I do hope he gets to play. I hope he gets to play in the program. I think we're fortunate to have TNT. They're certainly having that tradition and that rivalry. Being on the right side of the river is great. Being on the right side of the canal and having that history. No, I'm on the right side of the river too.
Oh yeah, that's true. You are.
So, no, and I certainly benefited from Mike's participation with Grand Island and being around that program and seeing that. And I think they parallel themselves a lot in the success that they've had. And, I think NT would still have that history because of the success that we've had for so many years in the 114 that, it's incredible to see, the kids that have come up. My son was in preschool with Jen Ferry and the Ferry Boys and seeing what they had done in their careers. And so I was able to follow, and you always follow those kids as they're going through. So with, the Dable boys, and they were part of our family. And then, with Mike's kids being there, and, so there's just been so much history. And so every year you kind of latch on to 1 or 2 kids that you pay attention to. And it's just, to see the state championships and the stuff that happened with Chancey's era, it's exciting to be a part of it and be a part of that tradition. And, we feel like we had pretty successful careers in the times that we were there. So, I think it made us better men. and helps us, pass that on to the men coming up. So congrats to the guys that won on Friday night. Absolutely. And, keep it going.
And
Jack?
it was nice was, when I was a sophomore and Rich was a senior, I was able to do that. And then as I became a senior, my cousin, Mike Zook, was a sophomore. So, he had the long snapping duties for 2 years. I came up as a sophomore.
Yep.
I took the long snapping duties away from him for 2 years. And then Mike Zook came up and he took, our cousin Mike Zook, he came in, took the long snapping from me and was probably the best out of all three of us. So, and he went on to have a great college career and everything else. So, to say it's a family tradition is, we had
Absolutely.
a big stretch there of immediate family playing together, which was really awesome to be able to do that too. So, I was fortunate to be able to play with him for that, my senior year, and kind of felt like what my brother went through when I was a sophomore. And except Mike was a lot bigger than both of us, and he was a lot more advanced than both of us as a sophomore. So he did a nice job. He didn't need much of my help by that time, to tell you the truth. So that was fun.
Rich, Mike, this has been a lot of fun. I want to thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your memories and bearing your souls to a certain extent, talking about North Tonawanda football. I wish you well. Be well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for everything you do, and really, we're honored to be on here. So
Absolutely.
thank you for asking us.
Appreciate it.